Warning, you're going to overdose on red pills this video. Well, I think you are. I don't really know what red pill means anymore. Is it just some OnlyFans chick on the whatever podcast going on so they could say, oh my god, she thinks she's a 10. What a fucking idiot. When I use the term red pill, I'm usually talking about the propaganda model, as it's one of the two things in life that endlessly fascinates me. The other? Well, you're just going to have to wait until after this. The answer is this hairless chimp. Look at him. Doesn't he look like Joe Rogan? Can't you imagine him saying,
holy shit, Jamie, pull that video up.
With this particular propagandic move that we're talking about today, I think it would be better if we started with the end product, as it'll make it a little easier to understand. And if you still don't get it right away, that's okay. It's not because you're stupid. Unless, of course, you are the end product, which is a Reddit user. Ooh, how's that for karma points? Reddit really should be renamed Willful Mental Inbreeding Program, shouldn't it? What's the bet if you looked at the logo under a microscope? I specifically got a VPN to prevent surveillance. Now, before we go on, I would like to commend the very few on there that are, like the other two stooges of TikTok and Twitter, fighting the good fight. I commend you for your service. You have a stronger constitution than I, as my God, you really are Custer and his men at the Battle of Little Bighorn, aren't you? This is the critique I get from these self-proclaimed critical thinkers that may as well be a template. They should just auto-post this. It's always, friendly Geordie. Yeah, I like his journalism. Redditors note, journalism on Reddit means things I agree with. Anything they don't agree with isn't journalism, that's bias, you see, so... Maybe I don't know what critical thinker means either, because I didn't think that it meant negatively bitching about everything on Earth except that dog episode of Futurama. It's always, but he is never critical of labor. For example,
insert whatever The Age published as a hit piece that day.
That I myself didn't know about until 10 seconds ago. Friendly Geordie has been awfully silent on this one. Oh, I suppose this is a lesson for us all to be more critical of everything except The Age. But I'll tell you why I'm not. It's mostly because I'm watching abroad in Japan and wondering, are you Richard Hammond or not? Like, you're much more charismatic and charming than Richard Hammond, but you do sound like him. So I'm always wondering, is he just eating the ramen to give himself energy to discover if a Ferrari's faster than a plane or what? But also, and this is the first red pill, what if I told you? Fuck, I'm so out of touch, eh? Still think that's relatable? Might as well be, hey Zoomers, you like penny farthings, right? Sorry, let me update that. What if I told you that a channel with about the same number of staff as a corner store run by a Chinese man doesn't have the time and resources to debunk every article you personally read on news.com? Come on! So anyway, the short answer is it's your fault. If you're not a Patreon subscriber. So sign up today, give me the stuff to do it, while you'll get in return early access to videos and a secret extra video. Here's a preview. It looks shit. But as a general rule of thumb, here's what's happening on Reddit. Just a lot of people saying this and only this, frankly, but also, because they're critical thinkers, they unquestionably accept the meta-narrative of the press, which is that there's bad media like the Murdoch Press and Channel 7, which, I'm sorry, did you forget Weekend Sunrise? And then there's good media like the ABC, Nine Fairfax, Crikey and the Saturday Paper. These are the good media outlets who, according to Reddit, are doing actual journalism. And why? Because they're being critical of the Labor Party, i.e. doing hit jobs on them in a way that Reddit agrees with, which of course they would, as they're regurgitating attack narratives cooked up by the Reddit Party. They really should make their slogan for the next election, actually... I'll give you a very clear example, but you could replace it with virtually anything, as they're ahead of you, Reddit. The Greens have discovered the power of templates. Stage 3 tax cuts. Why are the Greens campaigning against it? And why is the press constantly bringing your attention to the fact that the Greens are campaigning against it? Because you know about it. Why do you know about it? Because the Labor Party was campaigning against it in the last election, when you didn't vote for them because The Age gave you another reason to hate them. In fact, in many cases, the Labor Party brought these issues to 2 elections and they lost twice. So what are you even bitching about, Reddit? Third time's the charm? What a great slogan that'd be. Labor, you're wrong. Vote for us, please. They did a comprehensive review of this in 2019. They discovered that Labor promising to do these tax reforms and using that revenue to fund big new projects was one of the major reasons they lost. People didn't want it. It's like when John Howard said after a decade in opposition, I've come to learn that Australians like their Medicare. That's Labor's big, immovable contribution to Australian society. Medicare. And the Liberals' big immovable contribution is making a fifth of the economy unproductive by locking it in an asset that doesn't produce anything. But hey, that's reality. Get over it. And yet the Greens, in their perpetual Homer running for sanitation commissioner style, seem to be arguing, just break your promise you made to the electorate. That's a good way to build trust. What could possibly go wrong? That's the lunacy the press is egging on. Thumb your nose at the electorate so we can point out you thumbed your nose at the electorate and get you kicked out. To which you know Redditors would say, yeah, that's all I'm saying. They're compromised. They're shit light. Yes, very clever. I'm sure you thought of that yourself. I'll tell you who doesn't think that, though. Nelson Mandela, because he's dead. Oh, what a downer. But also public servants, as Howard also correctly identified. Overwhelmingly, they're Labor voters, as they're people that actually understand what government does and how it works, because they are the government. 80% of governing is getting these institutions to implement policies in the public's interest instead of the National Party's interest. And so ask the emergency services that are actually listened to now and properly equipped if they think it's shit light. The new climate change super department Labor created while turning the scary Dutton Ministry of Truth into a department that uses its spyware to spy on the weather instead of you so it could respond to national disasters more effectively. Stop the rampant privatisation of these public services. I could go on, and I frequently do. I mean, check these two videos out. So in the interest of saving time, I'll get right to the point. They're also making sure companies pay the taxes they're supposed to pay. Oh, yes. What? Did that not make it onto your Reddit feed? That's odd. Let me fill you in on this teeny little reform that is the biggest crackdown on tax evasion in human history, which is far more important than the tax cuts. In fact, CICTA, that's the Centre for International Corporate Tax Accountability and Research, they've been calling for it for years. They've stated that it'll more than cover the stage 3 tax cuts. In fact, it's so big they can't even quantify how much it'll bring in revenue, because until now we've had no way of measuring how much tax multinationals were avoiding. And so to give you an idea of just how bold this so-called gutless party is, the EU, you know, that secret special district that's officially owned by the Prince of Florence, and if you look closely at their coat of arms, I've said too much. The EU, endlessly praised by everyone that looks like John Oliver for being so forward-thinking and bold. They didn't have the guts to pass it. They passed a watered-down version that was like, yeah, you have to declare what your companies are earning unless it is one of those tax haven islands. I mean, a lot of them are in the Bermuda Triangle. We're lucky to get anything out of it, frankly. Like, I'm sorry, but this really needs to be emphasized. What is a red pill? Now, seriously though, this and only this, Reddit, no other government on earth had the courage to do that, not one. That's your so-called shit-light party in action, forcing multinationals to report country by country how much tax they're paying, how many employees they have, what's their revenue, all this information that until now was completely in the dark, which won't just greatly increase tax revenue here, but talk about punching above your weight as a global citizen everywhere. Countries like Pakistan and...
one of them loser countries.
Lots of praise for it internationally. Nothing here except a Michael West article. That's it. For the biggest crackdown in tax evasion ever. Nothing. No praise, no reporting, nothing. Why? Why do they not report on that and all of a sudden pretend to care about stage 3 tax cuts? Well, is that a fucking Clockwork Elf? Am I having a flashback? It's because, and it all makes sense once you learn this one little tidbit of history, the entire reason the press was invented was to smash the union movement, and by extension, the party that represents the union movement. In fact, the press openly used to brag about this. All that's changed is the tactics. So when it suits them, they highlight the Liberals' talking points that Labor's taxes will hurt everyday Aussies. And now that they're in, they highlight the Greens and pretend that this town-to-town elixir sales party is going to cure what ails you. Electorally unwinnable taxes? No problem. Stopping all gas exports in just 8 years? Make it 7. Labor's promising a 43% reduction in emissions by 2030. We'll beat it by 32%.
Greens Warehouse.
Policy so crazy, you almost wouldn't believe them. You know the man that set up the propaganda model? His name was Walter Lippmann. He said that the press doesn't tell us what to think, but what to think about. So ask yourself why this union-busting machine all of a sudden is getting you to think about the very tax loopholes it helped protect, yet doesn't seem to care whatsoever about the biggest tax loophole of all time being shut by this so-called compromise party. And the answer is, now that the Liberals aren't an effective political force to keep Labor out by themselves, it's a greenwash.